This is Money Motivation and Mike, and I am your host, Michael Wainwright, and on the other end of the table is Jason Wright. Here we go at our second attempt, Jason, into having a 10-minute show. And there's a lot of people that don't think I can do a 10-minute show.
I'm not sure you can either.
I don't know that I believe I can do a 10-minute show, but we're going to try.
All right.
And with this previous weekend, college football 2025 has kicked off. And I believe a lot of people don't know where the origin of not only college football, but football in general started up. Because remember, college football was the thing. We're only in I think we're coming up on Super Bowl 59, Super Bowl 60 in the NFL. College football goes back to the 1800s. Now, there was college pro football back into the 20s and 30s. The Canton Bulldogs, I believe, being the first NFL team. But college football was the originator, and college football was around decades before professional football started up. Another reason why college football has continued to be popular 150 years later. As a matter of fact, and what's interesting is the header says college football is gridiron football that is played by a team of amateur student athletes. Well, now they get paid. So how can you still be a amateur? When you get paid, you become a professional, right?
I would assume that's my logic.
Yeah. Well, you know that they have this NIL stuff where they pay out these monies to the collegiate athletes, not just in football, all the collegiate athletes. And now they've limited it to, it's still like $20 million. So I don't know how you call them amateurs anymore.
Yeah.
Because once you get paid, you're a professional. And just like in golf, you have the U.S. amateur every year, the British amateur. Well, you can't play in those if you're a paid professional. But nevertheless, 1869. Now, what people don't think about is some of the oldest schools in the country, in the world, but for sure in this United States country, is the Ivy League. So most of your longtime old records come from the Ivy League. And the first football game played November the 6th, 1869. Rutgers University faced Princeton. Both old school colleges. It was then known as College of New Jersey. That's what Princeton was called back then. And this was the first collegiate football game. The game closely resembled soccer more than football. Remember, soccer's several hundred year old sport. But it resembled more of soccer than anything, and it was played with a round ball, not the ball that you know of today. And there we go. Starts up right there in this Rutgers field in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Both teams, Jason, combined for 25 players. How about that?
What's the roster nowadays? Like 56 or something like that?
90.
Wow.
Now they don't.
Now for one team?
For one team.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. College football has 75 plus scholarships, maybe more. It may be 80 because you got to remember 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you got to give scholarships to freshmen to get them to come to your university. Now it's a whole lot of money too. Like I said, but you're giving out scholarships to freshmen that really aren't contributing to the team. More than likely, you got to give them a scholarship. The sophomores, the juniors, and seniors already have their scholarships. So it's heavy duty, scholarship driven sport where your spring sports in college is not so much. So that's why there's so many scholarships. It takes a lot. So we went from 25 on the sidelines in 1869 to 175 plus, let's just say, in today's game. Now, and that also doesn't even include the guys who don't suit out, because you can only suit out so many players. Maybe you'll look that up while I'm continuing on with my my show here. Even after the emergence of the professional league called the NFL, college football has remained extremely popular. It's basically, in my opinion, the football institution. And that is also due to the fact that every you got new players every year, and every 4 years you got a totally new team from the previous years. Now, how does college football continue to compete with the National Football League? It's because the fan base. There's so many more people who have went to that university, their families have went to that university, friends have went to that university, that allows that fan base to be much stronger than most individual NFL teams, outside the Dallas Cowboys, the New England Patriots, and, more popular teams like that. You go take an Arizona Cardinals, a Seattle Seahawks, a Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Jacksonville Jaguars, Atlanta Falcons. You take them teams, there are not many colleges in the country that have a less fan base than NFL teams like that.
Yeah.
They're just not popular teams.
Right. Well, you got your alumni and all that
yes.
continue to come back every single year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You got people that went to that school in 1950 that they tune in to see if their team is still winning and don't really know a whole lot about maybe even where the team is today. And also those stadiums are huge. Average stadium, 85,000. As a matter of fact, there's 6 stadiums in the United States that have stadiums exceeding 100,000 people. They also have, most of the stadiums are bleacher seats still. Now, you've got a few bucket seats, usually around the 50-yard line, and spread both directions, 10, 15 yards, but it's bleach-style seating in these old-school stadiums. They have expanded these stadiums, but they have not expanded into bucket seats. As a matter of fact, there are only 3 stadiums owned by United States colleges or universities that have bucket seats throughout the full gamut of the stands. University of Louisville, Georgia State, and Florida Atlantic. Now, Louisville's a big Division I school, but Georgia State and Florida Atlantic, they probably don't even have end zone seating. Their stadium probably ends at the goal line, and it's not probably triple decker like we have at most of these. So those are smaller. Now, I don't know what Louisville holds, but Louisville's got to be 50,000 plus, and so that they probably have a big time stadium. The third college football team ever, Columbia University. They were the third team to field a team. Their first game was against their first game was against New York City, not the University of New York City, New York City. So where did Harvard come into this? Because Harvard and Yale, in overall history of college football, Harvard and Yale still have the most national championships because they played each other every year. There wasn't 10 teams, and it came down to Harvard and Yale in most years until you get into the early 1900s. But Harvard started playing football in 1874, and they called football back then, of course, the Boston game, coming from Boston, Massachusetts. But they called it the Boston game. They couldn't call it football. They couldn't call it soccer because they called it the Boston game because it was a rougher version of football. Now, Harvard quickly took the liking to more of a rugby game. You also got to remember this: back in the 1800s, they didn't have the pads that they have today. I mean, they wore open face leather helmets into the 1930s and 40s, maybe even farther than that. I think by the 50s we had face masks and so forth and so on. But yes, Harvard and Yale, first ever game, which is the biggest game in college football to me, is always the Army-Navy game, because those are dudes that have not been paid, and their focus is on school and protecting the country and playing football on down the list, no higher than third. But Army Navy plays every year. It's like the last game of the regular season when they play, and it is it's incredible to watch that game. And if I only had one more game to go to in my life, I'd want to go see Army Navy. It's always played in Philadelphia, but that's a big game. Other than that one, Harvard and Yale, and Harvard and Yale started playing each other in June the 4th. June the 4th. Think about that. That's summer.
Yeah.
June the 4th, 1875. Harvard Yale, first ever game. And I do not have in front of me how many different national championships they both have won, but they've won more than, I think right now, Notre Dame still has the record of modern day football national championships, with Alabama real close behind them, Ohio State, USC. Then you're getting into Oklahoma, Michigan, teams like that, Miami, that would have up there close to what the Alabama and Notre Dame definitely have the most. So it's starting in the East and then going west and going all the way out. University of Colorado, for example, they began playing football in 1890. So it wasn't like it took forever for us to cross the Mississippi River and go into other places. Just like the Middle East. University of Michigan started playing football in 1879. And they became the first school west of Pennsylvania to establish a college football team. And they played Racing College. Don't know how they were keeping score back then, because the game was 1-0. Now, when I say Racing, R-A-C-I-N-E, that's how you spelt it. And Racing was out of Chicago. Never heard of it, but they played Racing College. Maybe it still exists, maybe it doesn't. I'm not really for sure. South, organized collegiate football was first played in the state of Virginia, and they call that the South. Jason, you got to remember the original 13 colonies. Yeah. Played in the South. November the 2nd, 1873, in Lexington, between Washington and Lee. And Washington beat Lee 4-2. So obviously we have not established a 6-point touchdown yet, or a 3-point field goal. Quite interesting, huh?
Right.
You just never know where all this stuff comes from. Penn, Ivy League. Looking back, they started playing in 1876 as well. You also think about that, 1876. Now, United States is celebrating its 100th anniversary, 100th birthday. That's how far back to me that's a long time ago.
For sure.
Yes. Not at the history of the United States, but very, very close. 100 years is not that long when you're talking about centuries upon centuries upon centuries of in this world. The first nighttime football game was played in Mansfield, Pennsylvania on September the 28th, 1892. Mansfield State versus Wyoming Seminary. A seminary has a game. They ended the game at halftime, Jason, in a 0-0 tie.
Wow.
Okay. I said Army Navy. Army Navy game, 1893. That's when it started. And in that particular game, they used something new called the football helmet. How about that? There you go.
Leather.
Hey, what's that?
Leather?
Oh, absolutely. Leather all the way. Made by a shoemaker. It was, here you go. Made by a shoemaker in Annapolis, Maryland. Okay. Home of Navy. So being warned by doctors that it could be deathly risky if you continue to play football after suffering a kick to the head. It might be risky. How about that? That doctor was a genius, wasn't he?
Indeed.
Nobody probably even cared. That's just part of the deal. Even when I started playing football in the 70s and into the 80s, you didn't worry about bleeding and you didn't worry about a concussion. Matter of fact, you didn't even worry about water. If you weren't getting hydrated, if you needed hydration, you were mentally weak. And I am not kidding you one bit. They have more deaths today. And I'm getting off, I've always got branches. They have more deaths today than they did back in the 80s. Back in the 80s, we never had anybody sit down, and everybody out there was about to die. But you did not stop. Number one, you did not want to be weak. And number two, you did not want the coach to know that the guy behind you that's backing you up might be better than you. Right. So you, if he don't ever get to play, we don't ever get to find out if he's any better than I am.
Exactly.
Yes. And that's how it rolled. But nevertheless, yes, if you needed water as late as the 1980s, you were a weak individual. And that right there will get you down on the other end of the bench. Don't even come close to me. I don't even want you in my presence if you need water. Jason, we had 2 water breaks in a 2-hour practice. How about that? These kids today, the parents would sue the school all the way to Washington, D.C.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, also, let me tell you this, because I've talked to some of my old coaches about that thing, and this is what they say. Mike, we didn't know any better. We're just a bunch of dumb old ball coaches. That's what they say.
Yep. In summary, that's right.
And that's how it was. But, today, they'll have 2 or 3 kids die during the summer 2-a-days. And I do not want to discredit those kids.
Yeah.
We just had one here last week, and he went straight to the trainers. The trainers went straight into protocol and did everything that needed to be done. And the young man died at the hospital of what I don't know the cause. I mean, obviously it had something to do with heat and probably dehydration. People don't realize you can die from dehydration.
Yes, for sure.
And I've had issues with that myself. That's why I know a little bit more about it. But nevertheless, the 1894 Harvard-Yale game, known as the Bloodbath, resulted in crippling injuries for 4 players. The contest was suspended in 1897 because it had gotten so rough. And, I mean, there's that I was saying, let's go out there and kill them. And that's what they literally were doing. And the collisions, no big deal. Haul them off on a stretcher and get somebody else out there. That was the way it went back in those days. Notable intersectional games, 1906, Vanderbilt played Carlisle. Once again, 1906, they played to a 4-0 game. Whatever. I guess going to have to go back and figure out what the score is. Now, Vanderbilt fought Navy to a 6-6 tie in 1907. And here we go. Vanderbilt was the defending champion of 1909, playing Yale to a scoreless tie. Back then it was all running. The passing game, the lateral game down the field did not exist. It was run, run, run. And so if you could get that run stopped, you had a large chance of not allowing them to score, which is where the concept still is today, or was today, not anymore because of the offense. You built your defense first. Back in the 1980s, like in my high school, and we had tremendous success, winning state championship and 29 games in a row, etc. You built your defense first, and then you built the offense. That's why I played offense, because they built the defense first. True story. You ever heard of Pop Warner football?
Can't say I have.
Well, that's what we used to call Little League football.
Okay.
Pop Warner. Glenn Pop Warner. He was a big innovator in the game of football, and coaching at several universities throughout his tenure. He was the guy before Newt Rodney, and Newt Rodney was the guy that put the University of Notre Dame on the map and became legendary. Newt Rodney. We could do a month of shows on Newt Rodney, but he went to work at the University of Notre Dame in 1913, and then of course took them to numerous national championships. Now, finally, as we get into the end of this particular episode, how many minutes have I talked, Jason?
About 21.
21? You are kidding me.
No, sir.
Jeez. I don't know how we're ever going to do it. I don't know how we're ever going to do it. But nevertheless, just so you know, the 1930s saw the game of football take off with the passing game. We will continue in the future, obviously talking about more collegiate football, because I just wanted to talk about it due to the fact that here we are, the beginning of a new football season. I mean, we ain't even got into playoffs. Who's won the most national championships? Incredible. But, by the way, in 2022, we had 42 bowl games. In 1930, we had one bowl game. You know what it was?
Tell me.
Rose Bowl. Granddaddy of them all. That's why they call it that.
Yeah.
We did not get into double-digit bowl games, Jason, until 1980.
Okay.
In the 1970s, there were 8 bowl games. From the 1950s to the 1970s, 3 decades, there was only 8 bowl games. And in the 1940s, there was 5. And once again, you can always find us at mx3.vip and find all of our new content on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@MX3 Podcasts. So for collegiate football, Jason and myself, continue to live your life the right way.